All right, welcome to another AVID chat. Jack, good to see you as always.
Good to see you, Dave.
So, I had an idea for today's chat. I shared a little bit earlier. I've been reading this book. It's called Becoming a Navy SEAL. And it basically walks through this guy's life of really from an adolescent to the current day in Navy SEAL training. And in addition to being a Navy SEAL, he actually ended up doing sniper training. So, it's like the top of the top Navy SEAL in terms of one, the stuff and the rigorous training they went through was quite mind blowing. So that in itself was pretty cool. But he described a situation um, in actual sniper training that I think is applicable to financial planning. So let's talk about Navy SEALs and financial planning.
Let's hear it.
So there's something in the book that he described called the Coriolis effect. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's basically a physics name for the impact that the Earth's rotation has on an object in motion. And he described it in this fashion, and I'll do my best to be concise. So when they're sniping at short distances, 200 yards, 300 yards, 900 yards, there's not a whole lot of impact of the Earth's rotation on that object. Let's say it's a moving car or a person or whatever it is that they're trying to hit. They do have to factor in wind, height, distance, other variables, where they're at in relationship to the object, but the Earth's rotation has no impact.
Yeah.
But the further out the object is, 1,500 yards, 2,000 yards, 2,500 yards, the Coriolis effect essentially takes that object and moves it. So in addition to all the other variables, as a sniper, you'd have to take into account the fact that a license plate 2,500 yards out there that was moving might be 2 inches off to where he needs to. And so he needs to take a click on the gun and make sure he accounts for that. And I was just
That's
mind
crazy.
blowing. Yeah, mind blowing.
Yeah, that's crazy. I wouldn't think that the Earth's rotation would have that much of an like. You feel like it's obviously going very quickly. 2,000 yards is a long way, but bullets going pretty fast. It's crazy that. But I guess if a couple of inches over that much distance, it would have that much effect. But that's crazy that they can adjust for that and hit target. That's insane.
Yeah, it was such a cool reading through it. And of course, my brain is always like, well, what does that mean for finance? So
Right.
let me tell you what I thought about after I read that. I'm like, you know what? That's very similar to financial planning and life planning, is that we always talk about the little things will have big impacts. And
Yep.
when we make little tweaks in the short term, we might not see that impact in 30 days, 2 years, 3
Yes.
years. But if you look out 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, which if you're 40 and listening to this, chances are you've got 40 plus years on here. Little things today can mean make a massive difference when you're 80. Just like
Yeah.
this 2 inches in movement because of the Coriolis effect.
True. Yeah. That's a good point. That it's hard to like all these little decisions that you make in the short run sometimes seem insignificant. And a lot of times you're making assumptions as to, how things will go in the future. But, that's a little bit of the challenge with kind of forecasting things is, you're guessing. Who knows what the future actually holds? So you've got a million variables. You got when will you retire? How much money will you be making? What will the market return be? What is inflation rates? How much are you going to spend? There's so much. And the further out you go, kind of the more variables and the more impact of small changes in those variables over time. So it's good to forecast, but it's also like, you don't want to get into the situation where you think, it's kind of specifically wrong. Like you think you're really, oh, I put all these
Right.
these variables in here, I come overthink it, and it gives me this number, and therefore it's good to go. It's like the further out you are, the more broad you're trying to be. Like, let's keep moving the general correct direction.
Right. And, tweaking things early on to set yourself up for success is good. I thought of one specific thing to do to help set yourself up for further success is we talk all the time about automating your savings. You get money, force it to go somewhere else. And for years, even myself, I would let it hit the checking account and then automatically redirect it on the 15th of the month. I've found, and we've found, clients would agree that if you never get it, it's even better. So a lot of times payroll providers will allow you to direct your money to an account before you even receive it. I have found that psychologically, it's if it's not in my checking account and I don't see it, then it's not a part of my income. It's not a part of my lifestyle. And therefore, I don't have a tendency to spend it. So one thing would be automate it directly out of your paycheck.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good one. A lot of these things, I mean, even these, like, you're talking about these different variables that there's, the Coriolis effect, there's the wind. But even with those variables, I mean, they probably have rules. I mean, you say, oh, if the wind's X miles per hour, here's what I do. You have rules. You're not just like every time you go out there just winging it. Like, all right,
Right.
well, let's guess. Like, no, there's like, if it's this, then you do this. If this, then you do this, which is just really just rules based. If this happens, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to decide that today, not when I'm like out trying to snipe people from 2,000 yards away. Like, we're going to figure this out today. We have procedures that we follow so that we don't get mixed up when we're kind of in this high stress environment. And I think that's good. I mean, that's basically what you're saying is, let me not every month make this an emotional decision as to, am I choosing between my today self and my tomorrow self? It's like, I'm already making this decision. Every month, my tomorrow self gets a certain amount before anything even comes to my today self. I've automated that. And that's a rule that I follow. And that's that. And I made that decision when I was before I had to actually do the deed. Like, I'm not like every
Yes.
time it comes in, I don't have to remake the decision every single time. I make the decision once and then I automate it. It makes things so much more simple and easy to follow, especially over a long time. To your point, these little things over a long time make big differences.
Yes. If I'm trying to build wealth and I have a rule that says if I get a pay raise, I'm going to take half of that and I'm going to save it for future self. And the other half, I'm going to spend because I get enjoyment out of that. When I get the pay raise, the moment I put that into place, then I'm done. And then the extra money that I have in my account, I'm not worried about what I'm doing with it in terms of, like you said, future self or today. It's already here. I get it. We can spend it as a family, as a friend, whatever you want to do with it. It definitely will help psychologically relieve some anxiety in your finances, no doubt.
Yeah. And just, you don't want to, like, rule yourself to death. You don't want to beat yourself over the head with 50 different rules, but having some kind of policies and procedures with yourself as to, this is how I handle things, is good. And it doesn't just have to always be how much you're saving. It can be, this I spend X amount of dollars every month on, doesn't even matter. This is what I do. This is what
Yeah.
I like.
Eating out.
Eating out. It's a huge deal to me. I love it, and this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to set that aside. That's a rule for myself. Is this is, and I'm not going to feel bad about that's what I do, because that's what I do. Again, you don't want to like rule yourself to death. Have 25 different rules that you're following, but to have some kind of structure in place. Again, before you have to make the decisions, it just makes it so much easier and so much less anxiety inducing to already have those things in place. Obviously, you have to follow them,
Yeah,
but it does make things easier for sure.
right. No doubt about it. And going back to the sniper story, financial decisions normally are not life and death, right? We're not in a situation
Yeah.
to where what we do today isn't impacting on someone else or my platoon and my um, friends and all those things. So it's okay to try something out. So you know what? Yeah, that sucked. Like I just don't like that it doesn't feel good. I'm gonna tweak it a little bit. And I think that's also where the art of this financial planning comes into play is being
Yes.
flexible, but having some sort of idea of this is what I want to accomplish. So let's try this way first, see how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. A little bit of trial and error is good. I mean, you're going to have to take some time to figure out what works for you. And I would be shocked if you got it right the first time. It's just going to take a little bit of trial and error, and your tastes change. You may be doing something for a little while and think it's pretty good. And then, 5 years into doing it, you think, I just, this has kind of run its course. There's other things that I'm
Mhm.
interested in, or some other way I want to organize this. And you just change it. There's,
Yeah,
again, you just kind of go back to the framework of, these are my rules. Some have been working, some have not. Let me adjust based on the situation today. And that's what you do. It's pretty flexible.
Yep. When you were saying that, it made me think of another part of this book that was pretty interesting. This gentleman started. He grew up basically on the water, so he did a lot of like underwater training and worked on captain's boats. And his family took a trip 30 days across the Pacific, and so he was very in tune with waters and tides. And he was able to take that experience at 16 and translate that into being a sniper at 26. And wind is different than water, as he says, but it's similar. And so he was able to apply those principles that he knew into what he was now doing and how impactful that was. And we could say that about financial planning. If I've started doing something when I'm 30 and I've
Yeah.
tweaked it and adjusted it and made it the best way I possibly could, when I'm 40 and need to make some adjustments or something new comes, that's going to be more ammunition, so to speak, to my own financial plan, because I've went through it, I tried it, I understand it, and now I'm more prepared for the future.
Yes. Yeah. There's no, it, it's very, I don't know, like we've talked about this so many times where like it just gets to a point. I don't know why you get to a certain age, like when you're a kid, like you just try stuff. Like there's just no, I don't know if there's social stigma or you get older and you feel like that maybe it's too much
Fear?
time to, yeah, too much time to get better at something. I don't really know. Like, I mean, you have a son, he just plays whatever. Just like there's no like, sure, give it a shot. Like, and there's no like, and then you lose, and it's like, you lose, and they move on and they're on to something else. I don't know why we get, you get to a certain age and you lose that ability, or I don't know. But to your point, it's like I think sometimes there's a fear. It's like I want to do the right thing today. It's like I know, but sometimes you got to try stuff to figure out what's right and not get discouraged when you try something and it doesn't work out the way that you thought it might work out. But it's not an all of it's not a loss. If you try something and figure out that it doesn't work, well, that's one thing doesn't work. At least you
Right.
can move on to something else. So, you know, trial and error, even coming back to rules, try some rules. Some will work for you and some will not. And it's just like, but you don't want to not have rules just because you think, well, I might not get it 100% right the first time. You're not going to get it right the first time. Let's make some rules. Let's get some stuff going, see what happens. You can always come back and change them, but let's start making some rules and putting some action into it so we can get some feedback.
Yep. Exactly. So I don't know. That's all I got on sniping and financial planning
Yeah,
for
right.
today.
Yeah. You're not killing people, but yeah, having some rules in place and determining those rules before ahead of time before you're kind of in the field figuring this stuff out and realizing that little changes today may have big impacts in the future, good and bad, which is basically just compounding. I think is important to keep in mind when you're developing your own personal plan and what works for you.
Yeah. Well said. So good chat. Looking forward to the next one. Until
Awesome.
then, have a good day.
All right, see you.
See ya.